Okay, in this video we are going to walk through the various parts of the human eye. So we have an eye model here, and if we kind of look at it from this view, this would be like we were looking right into somebody's eyes, or into your own eyes if you're looking in the mirror or whatever. So covering the front of our eyes is this kind of clear membrane, which is represented with this clear plastic structure. And we call that the cornea. Okay, and then deep to the cornea is going to be where you find the colored part of our eyes, which is the iris, which is kind of this brownish color in this model. At the center of the iris is this opening that we call the pupil. Now the pupil dilates or constricts depending on light sensitivity and light exposure. Okay. Now, if I turn the model like so, and I put the cornea back on, you would notice that there's this kind of little gap in between the front of the cornea, or the back of the cornea, and the front of the iris. We would call that the anterior cavity, and that's full of some fluid that we talk about, but is not super important for a practical standpoint. Okay. Behind the iris is where you're going to find the lens, another kind of plastic piece to our model, which is nice. You can actually see through this, just like we could actually see through the sheep or the cow eyes that we dissected in class. Now, if you look inside our model here, you can kind of see this pink structure here, not to be confused with this pink structure. This is the ora serrata, an important part of the choroid plexus that helps to focus our lens, and when we are moving light waves towards the back of our eye. Notice that the back side of the eye, or the inside of the eye, is going to be a very big cavity, which is also full of fluid. Just like in front of the lens we have a cavity full of fluid, this time we have a bigger cavity full of this kind of jelly-like fluid, as we got to find out during lab. Now, the kind of backside of the eye, and really the majority of the eye, you'll be able to find these three different layers. If we start on the outside, what forms the whites of our eyes is the very tough the very tough sclera. Okay, the sclera is the white, and then in the middle is the choroid, which is part of the vascular tunic, full of blood vessels. And then in yellow here in our layers, and then kind of orange in here, is the retina, which is where you find your rods and cones, the neurons that are responsible for taking light and turning it into an action potential. Okay. Now, if we kind of look at the eye like so, you'll notice that there is a structure kind of extending out the back of the eye, kind of at an angle. That structure right here is the optic nerve, which is a very important cranial nerve that we've discussed, providing the nerve signals that travel into our brain from those rods and cones that we found in our retina. Now, right where that optic nerve exits is going to form this natural blind spot. We call that our optic disc, which would be right here in our model, where we actually cannot process anything light-wise that strikes that part of our retina because there are no rods and cones. Now, if you look really hard, dead center at the back of our eye is just a very small depression right there, which we call the fovea centralis. Fovea centralis is dead center, like I said, and at the center of it actually is the macula lutea. Okay. Macula lutea for yellow spot. Okay. Now those are the structures of the internal eye. If I kind of look at the sides of the eye on this model, what we can see are some of the rectus muscles, which are visible for pulling our eye in different directions. I will probably not worry so much about you guys knowing those, because from the way that this model is looking, what we're actually seeing here would be a superior view. So we've pulled off the bottom. We have a lateral rectus, a medial rectus, and a inferior rectus. But I won't worry so much about that. We can also see in this model one of the oblique muscles, which helps to kind of roll our eyes, which, sorry, we can see right here the inferior oblique muscle, but it's not a super important muscle in this model. There are far better models for showing off the 6 extrinsic eye muscles than this model here. So I think that covers everything.